So, devotees, Hare Krishna. We will now start answering our questions. We have 12 questions, so it won't take so long. First of all, let us offer our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschityadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Caitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, devotees. So we have, Vanchkalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we have 12 questions. First question. Is it a guarantee for going back to Godhead if someone leaves their body in the Dham? No. It's not a guarantee. If you leave your body in Krishna consciousness in the Dham, then you'll go back to Godhead. If someone born in the Dham, a local person, leaves their body in the Dham, then they'll go back to Godhead as long as they maintain proper standards of Krishna consciousness, particularly following the regulative principles. But if they were breaking regulative principles, if they were taking intoxication and these types of things, then the understanding is that at least for people who are born in the Dham, they'll have to take birth as animals, generally, if they were sinful, if they were performing sinful activities. They'll take birth as animals in the Dham as a reaction for their offenses. But then when someone is in the body of an animal, there's no such thing really as offense for them or sin. So generally, and Prabhupada talked about this, generally, for the animals who pass away in the Dham, they'll go back to Godhead. Number 2, is Krishna consciousness a philosophy based on the Hindu religion? Actually, the Hindu religion is a philosophy based on Krishna consciousness. That's the fact. As Prabhupada pointed out on many occasions, and not just Prabhupada, actually, so many people, that the word Hindu does not appear in any of the Vedic literatures. It only first appeared after the Muslims started invading. And the way Prabhupada explains, or I think it's generally understood, is that the Muslims, they were coming from the West, and to enter India, they'd have to cross the Sindhu River. So they called the land on the eastern side of the Sindhu River the Sind, but don't ask me how it works, but they could not pronounce the letter S well, so somehow they pronounce it as an H sound. So it became that the people who were living on the eastern side of the Sindhu River became known as the Hindus. The Sindhus, but actually pronounced the Hindus. Because, in some cultures, people can't pronounce certain letters from other cultures. Like the Russians can't pronounce H. They can't say Hare Krishna like Hare Krishna. They have a guttural Hare Krishna. I mean, many Russians, if you listen to them, you'll hear them say Hare Krishna. Yeah, so, So, yes. So the Hindu religion, or the term, is just of recent creation, means over the last several hundred years or so. But what is Krishna consciousness, or Sanatan Dharma, is the real term for the religious tradition based on the Vedic scriptures. Sanatan Dharma, or the eternal nature of the living entity. 3, is there a difference in chanting of the Mahamantra by a person who is not initiated and someone who is initiated? Yes. Well, in principle, there's a difference in the sense that the person who is initiated is more strongly connected to the disciplic succession, the parampara or sampradaya, through having accepted a spiritual master who's a via medium for them to, you can say, in a sense, to Srila Prabhupada, and just on to the parampara. So there's some mercy which flows down when a person's initiated and a spiritual master is there as a representative of the Lord. Some more mercy flows down. Yeah. And so therefore someone who's initiated, generally speaking, their chanting of the Mahamantra is more effective than those who are not initiated. Those who are not initiated, normally they are worshipping Prabhupada as spiritual master, which of course, is something very important and wonderful. But when they're initiated, then they're still worshipping Srila Prabhupada, plus they have the living spiritual master who's also taking care of them and helping them spiritually. So it's the same. Prabhupada's there, just the same, but plus there's some extra help. And so therefore, at least anyone who's trying to chant seriously, there will be a difference. And actually many devotees have told me after they were initiated that they have felt a difference, an improvement. Number 4, what is dharma in the actual sense? What is dharma's role in human life? Why should I follow any dharma? Well, dharma, in the ultimate sense, dharma means the fundamental nature of something, of whatever, anything. What that thing or person or living entity or thing also really is in the most essential sense. And Prabhupada gave the example that, or Prabhupada raised the question, what is the dharma of the color red? Devotees, what's the dharma of the color red? Any ideas? Sorry? Danger. Oh, danger. Oh, Mother Radharadhana. At least you tried. You get marks for trying. Wasn't quite right though. Prabhupada discusses this. The dharma, the essential nature of the color red is its redness. That's what it is. You just can't get sort of any deeper understanding. And Prabhupada asked, what is the dharma of water? Is its wetness. Yeah, so dharma then refers to the essential nature. So what's the essential nature? What is the dharma of the living entity? The soul. Not just the humans only, or a certain group of the humans. But the dharma of the soul is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. Lord Caitanya says this actually. Jivera Swarup. Swarup is in this sense a synonym for dharma. Swarup means the essential nature. Yeah. Jivera Swarup. Jivera means of the jiva, the essential nature of the jiva, of the soul. Jivera Swarup Hoya Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Bade Abade Prakash. That the essential nature of the jiva is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. Jivera Swarupara Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti. That the soul is the marginal energy of Krishna. Bade, abade, prakash. Simultaneously bade, different from, and simultaneously abade, not different from him. Bade, abade, prakash. So yeah, this is dharma. I mean, this is in principle what dharma is, but specific to us, to all living entities, and most particularly to humans, our dharma is we're eternal spirit souls, parts and parcels of Krishna, and we are his eternal servants. So we should follow that dharma and engage in Krishna's service. Why do you, that's me, wear an orange robe? Haribol. Well, it's not just because the color orange appeals to me. And I mean, arguably, it's not exactly, I mean, it's orange basically, but there are variations between pink and orange, I'd say. So why? Because I am in the sannyas order of life, the renounced order of life, and means maintaining strict principles of, particularly of celibacy. And the orange, or sometimes we say saffron, color represents the fire of renunciation. That's the idea. The fire of renunciation, which is burning away material attachments and things so we can become more easily and more quickly absorbed in service to the Lord without distraction. 6, how do I understand whether I am ready for choosing a guru in my spiritual life? Yeah, sure, that's an important question, because it's something one doesn't want to do prematurely, in an immature way, just sort of, what would you say, as a fashion, or under pressure. Yes, there can be social pressure for a devotee to accept a guru. So, but anyway, how do you understand whether you are ready or whether you may be ready for choosing a guru? The first thing is, two things. Can you chant 16 rounds minimum of the Hare Krishna mantra every day? Can you just do it? And ideally, can you do it nicely and happily, and not like just by forcing yourself or something like that, but actually doing it with some taste for it? Can you do that? If you can't, if either you can't chant 16 rounds every day, some days you can, other days you just can't make it, then that means you're not ready. And even if you can do 16 rounds, but it's difficult, and you have to kind of force your way through them, then you're also not ready. And then there's the regulative principles, 4 regulative principles. No meat, fish, eggs, no onions, no garlic, no intoxication, including tea and coffee, no gambling, no illicit sex life. So if you can follow those without difficulty, without, sometimes almost, breaking one of the principles, just feeling like you're going to have to eat something you shouldn't or whatever. So if you can't follow the principles nicely without it being a struggle, then you're not ready. But if you can chant 16 rounds a day at least, minimum, nicely without it being difficult, if you can follow the regulative principles also nicely without it being difficult, and if you feel convinced about Krishna consciousness in general, that this is the right thing, if you feel that, sometimes you feel it's the right thing, other times you may have some doubts. I read several years ago, the Archbishop of Canterbury in England, the Queen is actually the head of the Anglican Church for some unknown reason, unknown to me and probably many other people, and maybe to herself. But the Archbishop of Canterbury is the actual religious leader of the Anglican Church. And I read several years ago, he wrote some article, or maybe it was an interview, And he was asked, do you ever have any doubts about what you're doing? And he said, yes. Sometimes I doubt if God exists. Means he's not ready for initiation. But he's the head. He's the actual head, the Archbishop of Canterbury. So yeah, if we are doing those basic things, chanting, following the principles, and we're convinced about Krishna consciousness, that this is the right thing, it's true, this is actually the truth, the absolute truth, then, in simple terms, you are ready for, what would you say, how would we put it? Like exploring the matter of choosing a guru. Exploring means you got to consider who may be a suitable person, a suitable guru for you. Gurus have different natures, and different gurus are in different situations in life, and depending on what your needs are and what you're looking for in a relation, the relationship with your guru. If you're a person who feels that you would like to have a really personal relationship in the face-to-face sense of being able, at least from time to time, to sit down and discuss your Krishna conscious, your life in Krishna consciousness with your guru. That's a very important consideration. If that doesn't matter to you, and if you're happy to be sort of at a distance, in a physical sense, to be permanently at a distance without really the possibility of developing that sort of, relationship in that, you could say, more obviously personal sense. That's an important consideration. If it doesn't matter to you, then that's fine. But if it matters, and you feel you want to be able to check in with the spiritual master and discuss and get, you could say, clearly personal guidance and so on, then it would to some degree, maybe not to a huge degree, but it would definitely to some degree affect the scope for your choice of a guru. That's an important consideration for many devotees. Like in Russia, many of the devotees want a guru who can speak Russian. Many. Yeah. So there's a whole move to have Russian devotees, because there's only two, actual Russians who are giving initiation. There's a couple I can converse. Niranjan Maharaj can converse. So probably we're the only two foreigners who can at least converse and talk with people, but otherwise all the other foreigners who are gurus, they can't converse in Russian. Yeah, but the first point of whether you are ready for going into the process of making a choice, coming to the point of making a choice. You've got to be chanting 16 rounds nicely and following the principles nicely. And you should be convinced that, this Krishna consciousness, this is it. This is just the truth in life. This is number 7, is it all right for me to aspire to become the best devotee? Is it not pride? Well, I would say it pretty much definitely is pride, because there's already a best devotee. Srimati Radharani is the best devotee, and you can't compete with her. I mean, it's completely, totally out of the question. So I would not really advise you to aspire to become the best devotee. I would definitely advise you to aspire to become a very humble, dedicated devotee. That you should do. But best not to get into a sort of comparative or even competitive type of mentality. Number 8. Is it an offense to preach Krishna consciousness when we are not well versed in Shastras and all we know is that Krishna consciousness is very beneficial? And if so, how effective would it be for such a person to attempt preaching? I was told when I was really new devotee that if all you know about Krishna consciousness is that prasadam tastes good, just tell people that. Just distribute prasadam and tell them, hey, this really tastes good. And if you're convinced, then, they'll see that you're really into it, and many will accept it. Yeah. But definitely we shouldn't go beyond our understanding. If as you say, all you know is that Krishna consciousness is very beneficial, then just tell people that. Hopefully, if you know that Krishna consciousness is very beneficial, then we assume you know in what way or ways it's beneficial. Unless it's just totally hypothetical. I heard it's beneficial, but I don't know. But if you actually know it's very beneficial, then you must know some ways in which it's beneficial, and you can tell people those things. But don't go beyond your understanding, because you can easily mislead people and confuse people and just put people off. Okay, here's a sort of funny question. How can we get your mercy, given that we're far away from you, in contrast with these great souls who are with you every day? Hari Bol. We are surrounded by great souls. We got how many? We got 7. Gosh, great souls here. Well, I tell you, I feel very fortunate to have the association of these great souls. I mean, some of them are on, different levels. Some have got further to go. Some are very advanced. Mother Radharatna, she's been a devotee now 40 years. 40 years. Yeah. So, but anyway, getting mercy in Krishna consciousness is not necessarily dependent on geographical location in relation to, you could say, the geographical location of the source of the mercy that you want to get. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada said that he only had the personal association of his spiritual master, maybe, if I remember correctly, something like 10 times. Yeah. And, it means that only like on 10 or so occasions, it's not like one time was for a year, but only on plus or minus 10 occasions was he in the physical presence of his spiritual master. And yet Prabhupada, when people would ask him, how do you do so much on your own in Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada would say, I am never alone. I'm always with my spiritual master. He's always right by me. So if we really get into that consciousness, first of all, if we accept that the relationship with the spiritual master is spiritual and not just material. Material would mean limited by the, in this case, physical restrictions of you can only be in one place and you can't be in a second place at the same time. So if the spiritual master's in the second place, but you are in the other place, physically, that you can't really overcome that unless you go to where the spiritual master is. But if we're really Krishna conscious, then even after the spiritual master has left this world, you'll still feel yourself to be in his presence. Yes. It's a very amazing, very wonderful part of Krishna consciousness. Okay, that was 9. Number 10. Who is a spiritual master? Who is a disciple? A spiritual master is someone who has been educated, trained by his bona fide spiritual master to represent Krishna and deliver the message of Krishna in this world and help the people of this world to become Krishna conscious. That's a spiritual master who's actually following the process as given by the bona fide spiritual master, following it and delivering the message as it is. And who's a disciple? It's someone who is following a bona fide spiritual master. Like we had the question just some minutes ago about initiation, not being initiated. Is there a difference? So the main thing is that the disciple, or sort of would-be disciple, within his or her heart accepts the spiritual master, that this person is my spiritual master, and at least internally relates with the spiritual master as their spiritual master. Initiation is important. The first thing, and ultimately the main thing, is the acceptance within the heart. And an example which can be given It's not, like so many material examples, it's not a perfect example, but, it's got elements in it which are worthwhile. Is that, at least in most cases nowadays, if people, or when people get married, it's essentially the official recognition of an existing relationship. Particularly in Vedic culture, but in other cultures also, there was a practice that marriages would be arranged and they would not see each other until the actual, like in the middle of the marriage ceremony. Yeah. Then they'd see each other. Oh, look at this. Yeah. So, but nowadays, I think it's extremely rare. I know that Burijan Prabhu, some of you may have heard of him, very great devotee. And Prabhupada, Burijan was in Japan, was preaching in Japan, and he wanted to get married. Prabhupada was in Australia, and Prabhupada just said, all right, I will send a wife for you. And that's what he did. He told this one girl that there's this devotee, Burijan, he's a very good devotee, he's living there in Japan. Would you like to go and marry him? And she said yes. And, a few days later, she arrived on the plane, and he picked her up at the airport. And he had agreed, and she had agreed. They'd never seen each other before. And they're still married. Like, I don't know, well over 40 years later. I don't know if it could possibly be. It's between 45 and 50 years later. But otherwise, when people get married, generally, it's just the official recognition of an existing relationship. So when a devotee, a disciple, becomes initiated, in a sense, it's just the official recognition of an existing relationship on the level of the heart. But still, even having said that, when people, a young man, young woman, they have such a relationship, but they're not married yet. But when they are married, it does add an element to the whole picture of their relationship. It really solidifies the relationship. So similarly, when a disciple is initiated, having some time before accepted within his or her heart that this is my spiritual master and lived like that, when they're initiated, it solidifies the relationship and it adds some depth, important depth to the relationship. Okay, number 11. My mind is always restless. How can I control my mind? One devotee went to Prabhupada once and said, Prabhupada, my mind, it troubles me so much. And Prabhupada said, yes, I know. My mind troubles me sometimes too. So how can you control your mind? In simple terms, but, very clear terms. And this is what Prabhupada and Lord Caitanya recommended strongly, and didn't just recommend, but insisted on. Harir Nam, Harir Nam, Harir Nam Eva Kevalam. Kalo nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. We should chant the holy names. Chant the holy names, chant the holy names of Hari, of Krishna. There's no other way. There's no other way to control your mind. There's no other way to get out of Maya. There's no other way to go back to Godhead. There's no other way to really be happy. Harir Nam Eva Kevalam. It means the chanting of the holy names is the only way. I have heard a devotee saying, we should not make cakes or any prasad in the shape of auspicious items, like the chariot, I guess the Ratha Yatra chariot, or in the shape of shastra, or chanting beads, or in the shape of temples. I have seen cakes in such shapes. Should we stop doing it? If yes, kindly let me know why it is prohibited. Yeah, well, when Prabhupada came to London in 1973, when we got Bhaktivedanta Manor, Shamsundar, who was the GBC actually at the time there, he had produced a letterhead for Bhaktivedanta Manor. And on it, right at the top center, was a, skeletal head of a cow. You know what I mean? Like the bones. Yeah. And Prabhupada saw that. And Prabhupada said, oh, we are killing cows now, are we? He didn't like it. Yeah. But I have seen, I would not make a cake. I mean, I can't make a cake anyway, actually. I can make halava, but not a cake. I've never made a cake. But I wouldn't, if I could, make a cake which had the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on it. Yeah. Something like, it'd probably be best. Chanting beads, I don't think there's a real problem with that. Kind of in the shape of a temple. I don't think there's really a problem with these things. But I wouldn't use the holy names. I've told the story of one time when Prabhupada came to San Diego. One devotee got the bright idea of writing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on the steps at the front entrance, coming up to the front door of the temple building. And he thought Prabhupada would like that. And in those days when Prabhupada would come, there would be this whole frantic marathon to get the place ready. They'd repaint everything and change many curtains and all this sort of thing. And they'd usually just finish as Prabhupada's car turned the corner to drive up to the entrance. And then everyone would be there ready. And all the stuff, in this case in San Diego, they just finished and they dumped the brooms and the rubbish and the empty paint pots and etc. at the back door. And Prabhupada came. And Prabhupada walked up to the front, to the stairs, and saw the Maha Mantra. And Prabhupada said, oh, this is the Maha Mantra. I cannot step on it. So he went around to the back door, which was just, chaos. And they had to pull things apart, and Prabhupada went in that way. So that's Prabhupada's personal example. But otherwise, so that I'm sure we shouldn't do. But otherwise, some of these things, it's, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but if it worries you, then don't do it. Hare Krishna. Yes.
And the holy names on bead bags and other bags.
What about them? Oh, is it okay? So the question is it okay to have the holy names on bead bags or like Harinam chaddars, that sort of thing? What else? I don't know, but those things are there. Yeah, it's okay. But, when whatever it is gets to the point where, it's sort of falling to pieces and you've got to replace it and dispose of the old one, then there should be, at least in every temple, and I assume there is here, what we always called a sacred throw-out. Things which are offered, so they're sacred, and they're disposed of in respectful ways. Like, these things you specifically mentioned, probably best to burn them. Probably best to burn them, yeah, rather than just, chuck them out, sort of thing. What do we do? Do we have a sacred throw-out? We do. So we put the things down there. I see. Okay. Is that okay? Hare Krishna, devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.